Okay guys, hey, this is Umberto from Emotions Music, and today I'm doing a whole other video because I've gotten a lot of questions about how I set up the scene to shoot a video. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about a video that is coming up, and we're going to discuss everything about this shoot. Starting from the lighting, starting from the camera, tripod, how to set it up, starting from the framing, how we get everything like in the right angle and the right picture that we want to have on the video later on. Then I'm going to discuss a couple of well, it's not a couple of, it's just one application that I use to remote control my camera. My DSLR cam, which is very handy if you are shooting yourself and you can't stand behind the camera and set everything up, so this comes in very handy. Another thing we are going to talk about is how to set up the camera. Actually, we'll talk about some options like the aperture, the ISO and so forth. So yeah, let's get right into it. What you see here is my setup. We have the stage with my absorber, that's going to be the background. We have the microphone because it's going to be a singing video, so we gotta have a microphone as a prop. It's not actually used in the shot because the audio file is being recorded in the studio. So what else? We got the lighting. As you see here, I just turned it that way so you can see me, but later on we're going to turn it towards the background. And this one is actually the key light. If you're thinking about that, we're using a 3-light situation, almost. Why almost? Because I'm using this one as a key light. I have the reflector here, as you can see, which is later on being hit by that light, so that makes actually a second light. And I got some lights on the ceiling that act as a fill light for the background. Then what we got here is a tripod. It's a very sturdy tripod, a Manfrotto tripod, which I recently got and I'm very happy with it. It's definitely one of the best things you can get, talking about the brand. And my DSLR cam is a Nikon D7000 DSLR, digital DSLR. So yeah, let's start by setting up the frame. So what we do is, if you have already in mind a certain look of your video, if you have in mind a certain framing, so what do you want to have in your shot, you carefully gotta adjust that with your lens, depending on what lens you use. I'm using a, just let me have a quick look, it's a VR 18-105, so I can zoom in and I can control the framing by turning the lens. If you have a fixed length lens, like a 50mm or a 35mm lens, you would have to do that by moving the tripod backwards or forward. So we here can do it by just adjusting the lens itself. Then in this case, let me just quickly move the camera. So what you're now seeing is me standing in the actual frame that is going to be shot later on with my DSLR camera that you can see on this corner here. And as you can see, I turned the light towards me. We have the reflector that bounces back some of this light. We have a window here, so there's more light coming in, and we got those fill lights up in this corner that give it like a warmer look, because it's this one is like a daylight, a white light, and this is a little bit more yellowish, so it makes it a lot nicer to the eye. The background, we will be zooming in so that we just have this background and like cut the top of it so you don't see any white of the walls and you don't see any other than this background behind me. Talking about the software that I'm using to control my DSLR cam. It's called DSLR Remote. You can get it in the App Store for iPad. Let me just quickly show you how it looks. So this is the actual, as you can, just let me show you. So this is what my camera sees at the moment. Okay? So I have all the controls in here that I can, focus, I can set the ISO, I can set the aperture, the shutter speed, I can even record video with a video mode. And this is the release button, which gives me the chance to take a picture like that. And so this makes it very handy for me to shoot while I'm not behind of the camera. And coming back here, we can start talking about the camera settings. I will later on put in a short take of what it would look like to change the settings on the camera. I'm doing it right now on the remote application, on the remote app, sorry, so that we can take some pictures just to show you what the difference is between different aperture settings. The aperture is basically like a ring that closes down inside the lens and defines how much light gets into the lens. So the lower the aperture setting, this is sometimes a little bit confusing, the lower the aperture setting, the bigger the actual opening in the lens is, and the higher you put the settings, the smaller the hole gets where the light comes through. This is not only interesting when it comes to controlling the brightness or the exposure of an image or a video taken, but it's also a key feature that you have to control when you want to get those nice shots where you have like the background out of focus and the foreground in focus. So this is my HD camcorder I'm recording on, and it's not very, it doesn't have a very big lens, and you can't really see it now how the aperture controls the frame. I am now focusing on the microphone itself and taking a snapshot of this. What you will see now that I put in the picture that I shot is that the microphone is in focus and I am not, nor is the background. So now let me quickly focus on the background. Okay. Now you have examples how it looks when you set different focuses with an aperture wide open. So that gives you, as I said, the nice blurry background or foreground and enhances the subject that you're definitely going to film. So now let's just talk about the ISO. The ISO, basically, first of all, I'm not a photographer, so there might be things I've gotten wrong or whatever. It's just, I just figured out everything and try to learn things while doing what I do, while recording my videos, while shooting photos or whatever. So it can be that I'm mistaken things, but the ISO, as I understood, is it comes from the time where we used to shoot on film. So it always was a measurement and defined how sensitive a film is. Same applies on the digital sensors. The higher you crank up the ISO, the more light sensitive it gets. Another thing that also happens when you turn it turn it to a higher value is that it gets grainy. So what I like to do is always keep it as much down as possible. In this case I'm shooting at 100 ISO, which is the lowest what my cam does. So I'm sure that the picture is very smooth and has no grain or no noise in it. And yeah, the f-stop in my case with this lens and with the zoom factor I'm using is 5.3, f5.3. So that's the maximum, or the widest opening I can get with this lens. And the shooting time, I set my camera to aperture priority, which means I dial in the aperture and the camera like sets the shutter speed to get the optimal exposure. And in this case, in this lighting situation, for me it's 1/4 of a second. I'm shooting in full HD when I shoot my video, so this is very important. And a thing that I would suggest you to do is when you set the focus on the subject. I do it using the DSLR remote app on my iPad. If you have a camera with a flip out screen, for example, you can see actually if you're in focus or if you're not. And usually when you're working remotely with a camera, what I think most of us do, if they don't have anybody who assists them, you should get a remote control, and every remote control always has a two-way operation knob. That means if you push it down slightly, the camera focuses, and then if you push it all the way down, the camera starts to record or takes a picture. So always make sure that you set the focus, because it's very hard. If I'm standing here, I cannot turn the focusing, the manual focusing ring. So I would go to the camera, dial in the focus, come back, see if it's okay, and do that back and forth. So it's kind of hard to do. That's why I love this app, and that's why I use it every time I shoot my video. Yeah, I think basically this is it. Now I'm just going to show you some of the settings on my camera. So here we go. This is my Nikon D7000. As I told you before, is set on aperture priority mode. That's the A that you can see here. Then you have your top display, which gives us all the information about the settings. In this moment it's f3.5, that's the aperture that you can change with the front wheel. Just let me get that on. See, if I crank it up, I close down the aperture. So the bigger the number, the smaller the aperture. Going back down, the smaller the number, the wider the aperture. What you can see here is the shutter speed that adjusts accordingly, because I set it to aperture priority. That means once I change this value, I change this value and the camera changes the shutter speed. Now it's 1/20th of a second. If I go up, you see it's a 1/10th, an 1/8th, 1/6th, and so forth of a second. If I crank it all the way up, you see that little symbol here. That means 1.3 seconds. Yeah, so the higher the f number, the smaller the aperture, and the longer, of course, the exposure time to get the right exposure. So this is not only for a Nikon. Usually all the DSLR cams come with those wheels in the front or in the back, or both. Mine has both. I think on Canon they just have the front wheel or the back wheel. I'm not sure. I think it's just the back wheel. And once you have it to one of those modes here, this is manual, this is aperture priority, this is shutter speed priority, and this is a program which is which has already certain programs, presets, as you call it. I suggest doing it in aperture priority mode or manual mode. But aperture priority always gives you some more of an aid on getting the right exposure if you're not very familiar with all those numbers and all that stuff. Well, aperture priority mode, dial in the smallest aperture number, the widest aperture that you can get. And this way you get a very nice looking blurry background and foreground if you have any objects in the foreground, like this microphone in my case. And yeah, to the lens, this is a Nikkor 18-105, as I told you. You can see it goes all the way out, all the way in, so you can zoom in. We have the automatic or manual focus that you can switch here. If you switch to manual focus, you'll have to dial that thing here, which we're not going to use in this shot, but I'm using the automatic mode. Yeah, that's basically it. Just to talk a little bit about the software, the app I was using. The camera has to be connected to a computer or a notebook with the USB cable. Then there is a software running on the computer that's called DSLR remote server that sets up the connection for the cam. Once you got that running, you can open the application. There we go. This is the shots I took before. You can see them up here in the thumbnail bar. And yeah, here we got all the controls for the camera. This is, for example, the live view, which is now giving us the image my camera sees because it's lying on the table. Then we have all the settings of the camera down here. So it's the f4.0, which is the aperture. We have the ISO, the automatic white balance, which you can actually correct by using different settings for different light situations. Then we have the recording format, which is RAW format and JPEG. And we have the exposure compensation, which you can dial in, but that's not of an interest right now. And then you have, of course, the fire button, which snaps a picture like that. So yes, that's basically it. And I hope I could give you some insight on how to do those things. I would suggest if you have a remote or if you have a DSLR camera, get this this app, DSLR camera remote on onesoftware.com is the link. I will put it down in the description box. And yeah, so this is basically it. This is how I set up my my environment to shoot a video, to shoot this particular shot that I'm going to record today. So check back on the video once it's out. It's going to be a holiday video, and yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any further information, any further tips for other users, and I'll see you around. Bye guys.